All right, next question. Let's see if we got, let me see what we got in the outside chat. Let's see. We have Avi Ben Shimaz. She says, "What does Rabbi Asher think regarding a conversion under the auspice of Chabad, and also has he heard of the Kahati Mishnah set by Rabbi Pinkus Kaheti, and if he thinks it's preferable?" Toda. Thank you.
So Kahati is a commentator to the Mishnah alone. It's not Mishnah Torah. And that's typically the first commentator people study in yeshiva with the Mishnah, almost like an entry level. The Mishnah, again, not Mishnah Torah alone. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. That's actually what I started off with, Kahati. Chabad conversion is 100% kosher. Why wouldn't it be? If it's done in a kosher manner, it's kosher. To be honest, a Messianic conversion done by Torah-observant Messianic Jews is also kosher. From a halachic level, what do you want me to say? I'm not trying to pick sides here. If something's done according to halacha by halachic Jews, I don't think who they believe the Messiah is matters. A conservative conversion performed by Torah-observant conservative Jews, I guess they technically wouldn't be conservative anymore, is also kosher. So,
thank you for that. And if anyone has any questions in the room, please feel free. We got a packed house, and I'd love to hear. I'm going to read a comment. Just say, "Hi, I'm here." It says, "My wife's family were super crypto and hid their Jewishness. I have a side of my dad's family, too, that are crypto Jews as well. In Mexico," he goes on to say, "they all seemed more Jewish than my family were openly Jewish." That's interesting. I don't know. There's nothing really else being said. Oh, I'm sorry. Avi's saying another comment. He says, "I'm converting from Salafi Islam. I went to federal prison for 6 years, and of it, I learned the Torah, and I couldn't reject it because I couldn't reject its ethical and moral truths. Hopefully, one day, me and the Rav can talk." Wow, what a bracha that is! That you're able to read the Torah and find the truth in it. That is amazing. Thank you for that little story there.
It's so much easier to come to Torah from some pre-existing monotheistic religion. This is why I don't get upset when I see a Christian, because I pretty much just see a potential Jew. Same thing when I see a Muslim. Now, it's harder to convert a Muslim to Judaism than it is to convert a Christian. It's harder to convert an atheist to Judaism than it is to convert any of those two.
Why is it harder to convert a Muslim? I converted to Judaism from Islam, and I had no problems.
Because Christians don't view the Jewish scriptures as corrupt. So they're halfway already there. And this is what the Rambam says. So the Rambam says that it's mutter to teach Torah to notzrim and draw them to our religion. But then he says, but to Muslims, you shouldn't do it because they'll only use the scriptures against you because Christians already accept their Bible. That's the main reason we don't see many people converting to Judaism from Islam. Also, most Muslims live in Muslim countries and they're not allowed to convert to other religions. But in America, it's also not very common. I mean, maybe in Detroit near Dearborn, but I've actually converted one Muslim from Egypt to Judaism, but I think that's the only, like out of the thousands of people who converted, just one person who was Muslim. Yeah.
It's hard to get it too, since we pretty much practically believe in the same thing. It's like, what are you going to argue with other than?
Actually, the rabbis told me that I could actually teach my children Islam, even though I'm a Jew. I can teach my children Islam, and I think I can't teach my children Christianity, but I can teach them Islam. I think because Christianity is idolatry, but Islam isn't. I think that's what someone told me. But I actually raised my children as Muslims, and I'm an Orthodox Jew.
So I've heard that opinion before, and I happen to disagree with it. I have a whole video teaching the opposite. I teach that at least Messianic Judaism is not idolatry, but Islam is idolatry. And but regardless, there was no Islam in the time of the Sanhedrin. There was no Islam in the time of the Mishnah. So we won't know if it's really idolatry, or even Christianity, that we won't know if Messianic Judaism is really idolatry till there's another court to declare it so. So it's really gray area. But I'm just saying, from what I've studied, Islam is idolatry with the exception of the Rambam. The Rambam was the one who said it wasn't idolatry and then kind of made that idea popular. And then he said that Christianity was idolatry, while people like the Ramah.
So you wouldn't pray in a mosque, but you would pray in a church?
I wouldn't pray in either.
Would you enter a church, but you wouldn't enter a mosque?
There's no halacha that says that you could pray in a mosque. The Rambam makes that statement, but only the Rambam makes that statement. If it appears in the Mishnah Torah and it has any halakhic weight, it's because he's quoting a statement in the Talmud. But this happens to be just his opinion because he happens to view Islam as not Avodah Zarah. But there's rabbis like the Ran who says that it is Avodah Zarah. In terms of praying, I don't pray in neither. However, Islam may be a different form of idolatry than a base of Avodah Zarah of the past. Because the rabbis do say this, that the idolatry of after the second temple was different than the idolatry before, and it carries a different weight to it.
Would you enter a mosque?
Sure, like I've entered a mosque.
Would you enter a church?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Now, Christianity, I do consider idolatry. I'm saying Messianic Judaism is different. But not idolatry in the sense that they're worshiping an idol, because that's not what idolatry really means.
So the problem, I guess the problem would be the tchotchkes, right? The cross and the dead Jew kneeled. Well, allegedly the dead Jew kneeled to it.
No, that's not an issue. For some reason, Christians point that out, especially when they leave Catholicism and they enter Protestantism, like that itself is idolatry. According to Judaism, that's not idolatry, because it's technically not a foreign god. It's really a form of veneration. First of all, idolatry, what does it mean idolatry in Hebrew? Avodah zarah means foreign service, as you guys know, because I've mentioned it many times. I guess if you were going to say the word idolatry in Hebrew, it would be avodat pesilim. You're serving statues, which is a form of idolatry, but idolatry in Hebrew is not limited to statues. For example, Islam doesn't worship any statues, and it's still considered idolatry. Why? Because it's a foreign mode of worship of God. Like by the simple fact that they say that the Torah is done away with or corrupted, means that we worship a different God, because the way we know who we worship is what that God expects from us. I don't care like if Allah,
but it's the same God. It's the same God, and they're against statues.
Only because it happens to have the same name or the same title. What does it mean it's the same God? If that God requires different things from you, like why would you assume it's the same God? Just because Muslims want to be adamant that their father is also Abraham?
We have Vaughn in here, and he's a pagan, and he'll tell you that in some pagan religions you have the name Yahweh and Elohim and El Shaddai. Those were pagan God names. They had the same names as our God.
Saying that the whole Torah is corrupted and that the Jewish people are in some way not perfectly accepted by God. They don't accept the final messenger. That's clearly a different form of service. We're worshiping God in a different manner. So it's avodah zarah, worship that's weird. That's all it means. Now, clearly, this is just my opinion because there's no Sanhedrin. If there was a Sanhedrin, they would have to declare it so. But if you wanted one source, or two sources, in Masechet Sanhedrin, it talks about Marculus. So Marculus was a god that was worshipped by throwing stones at it. So that's clearly what they do with the Hajj. That may resemble it. For example, Shiites also have this practice of cutting themselves for Ali. Now, that's a clear Torah prohibition. Don't cut yourself for the dead. There's many things they do that fall under the rubric of Avodah Zarah. The word idolatry is not a good translation because they think that unless you're bowing down to some statue of Molech, you're not performing idolatry. Idolatry could be having a different Bible, a different perception of God and what he expects from you. That is foreign worship. So that falls under the rubric of idolatry. Now, the word Avodah Zarah doesn't even appear in the Torah. That's a rabbinic term. In Torah, it's Avodat Elilim, which means to worship gods, to worship other gods. But again, if you believe that your God has done away with the Torah, just like Christians believe, then it's clearly a different God. Now, I don't think Messianics believe that because they try to keep the Torah, but that itself makes Christianity idolatry, and that makes Catholicism idolatry.
But why is Islam more problematic than Christianity? I mean, Christianity is just as problematic as Islam.
For sure, they're both problematic. That's why I didn't say Christianity. I said Messianic Judaism.
But you said that it's harder to convert a Muslim than it is to convert a Christian. I thought Christian. I was a Christian, then I was a Muslim, and I was a Jew. I found Islam closer to Judaism than Christianity. I found them stepping stones to Judaism. I found Islam much closer to Judaism than Christianity.
It's because of source material. Our Bible is their Bible. That's really the main reason. Muslims have a separate book.
But it's much closer. Islam, even though they twist it and they change it, being a Muslim is much closer to being Jewish than being a Christian. I'm telling you, I've been all three.
Islam is nothing but a corrupted form of Judaism. Absolutely. And it's a lot closer in that sense than Christianity, not Messianic Judaism. However, because they believe that our Torah is corrupted, it's harder to convince someone to believe in a book what they've already accepted as corrupted than to believe in a book.
But if they want to convert, they say, okay, I'm done with Islam. I want to be Jewish. Then what's the issue? You're not convincing. You don't proselytize as a Jew. You don't proselytize as a Jew to anybody. You don't convince anybody to convert. They have to come to you and say, I want to convert.
I do. But there's no prohibition in proselytizing. That's just a legend. It's not prohibited in the Talmud. It's not prohibited anywhere. But
we have Brother John in the outside chat. He says, "What's really going on with the conversion? Is it really God or the rabbi that's doing the conversion?" I think we can all safely say that. Really, I think what Andrea is trying to say and the rabbi, I think you're both over talking each other. But at the end of the day, it's really Hashem that does the converting. No.
Andrea and I aren't even speaking about that. I mean, I'm all for converting Muslims if they want to convert to Judaism. I'm just saying that it's easier to convince a Christian who already believes in your Bible. Tobias Singer is so successful because he's using the Christian Bible, which includes a Jewish Bible, to bring Christians back to Judaism. But once someone has departed from those scriptures to another book, it makes it a little harder because the average Muslim doesn't even have a NIV or King James in his back pocket, right? But a Christian Bible, you can just tear it in half and there you have the Jewish Bible on the right and the Christian Bible on the left. That's why it just happens to be easier. But in terms of practice, look, if a woman's covering her hair in Islam, it's going to be easier for her to cover her hair in Judaism than a Christian who's never covered their hair. Clearly, in practice, it's very similar. But to get them to drop Islam is not that easy. That's it.
Okay, fair enough.